Good morning, friends. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, this material world is not a very good place for being happy. We try to be happy, but the happiness, the level of pleasure in the material world is very limited. And it's very frustrating because no matter how much we try on every single level of life, we are always met with disappointment. No matter what level, the bodily level, the mental, intellectual, every level available to us, we are met with disappointment. And this goes on and on and on in small cycles, larger time frames, even larger time frames, and ultimately our whole life is met with disappointment. And I know I sound like a very negative person, like someone you want to avoid in life, but there's a good conclusion to what I'm saying here, because I'm not a negative individual. The fact is, we are all looking for pleasure. And that is the DNA of our existence. Because we are linked with God, God is Ananda Mayo Sat. In Vedic scripture, God is Krishna. And He is full of pleasure. Sat Chit Ananda. So, because we are coming from God, we are also seeking that pleasure. So our nature is to always seek pleasure. But when we are confronted with the limitations of the material world, we are met with disappointment because this material world is not meant to fulfill our highest need for pleasure. In order for us to get that pleasure, we must connect with the source of pleasure, who is Krishna. Another meaning of Krishna is He who stops the repetition of our death. So when we connect to Krishna, then the disappointments of material pleasure are removed from our existence, from the impressions of our mind, and we come to the spiritual plane of existence, and our soul connects with God, and then it is perfect. So, I want to spend a minute explaining to you how we can make this connection with Krishna. The simplest method is given to us by Lord Chaitanya, who is an incarnation of Lord Krishna, who taught in India 500 years ago. And he explained that this chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra will connect us with Krishna. So what is this mantra? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. 3 names in a special, significant structure, so that it is repeated in a certain way over a short burst. And when you repeat this mantra, then you will become connected with Krishna in due course of time. So this Hare, Krishna, and Ram. Krishna obviously is a direct name for Krishna, for God. Ram is also a name for God, or also means unlimited pleasure. But the Hare is extremely significant because the Hare is repeated both in the Krishna portion and the Ram portion of the mantra. Hare is the pleasure-giving potency, or it is the potency that gives Krishna and Ram the desire to give pleasure to us. What is Hare? Hare is Radha, persona, or Krishna or Radha. Hare is the instigator of the pleasure potency, or I should say it is the instigator that gives, that makes and wants Krishna and Ram to give the pleasure. What is Hare? Hare is Radha. Radha is the consort of Krishna, just as Lakshmi is the consort of Narayan. So Hare, Radha is the consort of Krishna. That is Krishna's wife, girlfriend. And as we know in life, it is the woman that is the instigator of pleasure. She is the one that wants pleasure. From who? From her lover. So Radha is wanting pleasure. She wants to engage in acts of pleasure with Krishna. So she is the Stri, the expanding principle. And she engages in certain ways to stimulate the mind of Krishna for pleasure. Originally, Krishna was one, but in order to increase his pleasure, he created many. Radha is the most significant expansion of Krishna, and by her means, Krishna becomes enlivened for pleasure or pleasure-filled activities we call Leela. Leela means activities or pastimes. So the Radha Krishna Leela are the most interesting to the Gaudiya Vaishnav Bhakta. We are Bhaktas, Bhakti Yogis, because we want to connect to Krishna through his Leela, of Radha Krishna Leela. We want to connect to him. So this chanting of Hare Krishna or Radha Krishna will connect us to the Leela, the sweet Leela of Radha Krishna. And so Radha is inducing Krishna, and they together engage in beautiful pastimes, and we can join them in this Leela. So why is this important for us? Because we are always looking for ananda, pleasure. But where is the pleasure in the material world? It doesn't exist. It is like the oasis in the desert. It's a reflection of the water. It doesn't really have a substance to it. So then where is this pleasure coming from? It must be coming from the spiritual plane, because it exists, but not here. This is a reflection. The material world is a reflection of the real place, the spiritual world. So everything down here is a reflection of the spiritual world. So if you want to enter into the real place, then you chant Hare Krishna. And this chanting process, this chanting, it brings sweetness to the tongue, and then to the mind, and to the intelligence, and then to the soul proper. Now, I don't have to explain to you what is pleasure. If you chant Hare Krishna, you will know what is transcendental pleasure. And when you do this chanting, after a while, you will not want to give it up, because it is the real thing. So when we chant Hare Krishna, we are focusing on Radha, who is giving pleasure to Krishna. Maybe in the beginning you will not be aware, you will just feel pleasure, but later as you discriminate in your fine thinking, you will experience that your connection to Krishna is coming through Radha. That's why in India, where Krishna took his birth, Brindavan or Brindavan, very holy area, small area, about 90 miles south of Mathura. You will find that the residents there are always walking around and they go, Radhe, 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 Radhe. So they're always thinking of Radha, because Radha is the instigator of the Ananda of Krishna. So as you chant Hare Krishna, you begin to focus on Radha and her persona and her form and her activities as she instigates the pleasure of Krishna. Which means that we, as the Bhakta and the follower of Radha Krishna, we become aligned with Radha, because we are part of that which stimulates the pleasure of Krishna. In the material world, we are the ones seeking pleasure falsely, and we never become satisfied. But on the spiritual plane, the act is to instigate the pleasure of Krishna. We become part of that experience. So this is where our pleasure comes from as individual spirit souls. My purpose is to instigate the pleasure of Krishna. And when the dam of pleasure opens up, I am fulfilled. All of us become individually fulfilled in this act of opening up the pleasure of Krishna. So Radha is the supermost, the foremost in inducing Krishna's pleasure, and I want to be aligned with Radha. My purpose is to serve the interests of Radha, because her purpose is 100% to serve the interest pleasure of Krishna. So this is the different thinking of a spiritual individual, a bhakti yogi. In the material world, I'm thinking, what is in it for me? What pleasure, who will make me happy? This person, yes, this person, no. The duality, thinking of duality. Like him, don't like her. She makes me happy, he doesn't. Tomorrow, she makes me happy, she doesn't. I switch. All this relative thinking is causing me so much anxiety in the material world. But no matter what happens in the material world, he gives me pleasure or she doesn't, or she does. Ultimately, all this fails. So I want to change my thinking. And the difference is, on the spiritual platform, I'm interested in giving the pleasure, not taking and receiving. But when I give the pleasure, I automatically receive it. The more I give it, the more I receive it. Now, this is also a true principle in the material world that we are not very aware of. But even if we are in the material world and we are trying to give the pleasure, not to receive it, still we fail. Because the pleasure we receive in the material world is very limited. But in the spiritual world, it is rightly connected. This is the right connection. Krishna is the right object to be connected to. And this is the conclusion of all Vedic wisdom and Vedic knowledge. And you can find the cream of that Vedic knowledge in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna explains in 700 verses in the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, his warrior friend. He says, basically, if you want to be a success in the battle, then surrender to me. The battle of Kurukshetra. He says, surrender to me, and I will make you a success. And not only that, you and all the other warriors who are in this battle, if you fight for me, when the battle is finished or when your life is finished on the battlefield, you will come to me. So Krishna said, you'll never be defeated. The Bhakti thinks this way, that by chanting Hare Krishna and surrendering to Krishna and making him the object of our devotion, we shall never be defeated. And this is a very important principle. So only by surrendering to Krishna, we will never be defeated. This is the secret of Bhakti. Everything else we do, we will be defeated. This doesn't mean that we have to give everything up, although Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, give up all other forms of religion and just surrender unto me. So religion means to surrender to Krishna, to fix your mind on Krishna and engage in Krishna consciousness. And the easiest process is chanting Hare Krishna on a daily basis. And why does Krishna encourage us to surrender to him? Because then we are rightly situated as spirit souls. You want to be situated correctly on the spiritual plane of existence. That is very important. Then you are aligned correctly. If you are aligned with the highest power, Krishna, then everything will be revealed to you, just like the morning sun comes up and reveals the forms that were invisible due to the nighttime. At night we cannot see anything. But as soon as the sun comes up, it doesn't even have to rise in the sky. Just makes it break. It breaks just even before it breaks onto the horizon. The effects of the sun rays dissipate the darkness and form becomes visible. In the same way, in your spiritual life, when you chant Hare Krishna, because you are aligned with Krishna, the supermost form of God, the most super form of God, because you are aligned with him, he is like the sun, and you will see everything clearly. Above all, you will feel happiness, proper happiness, not material happiness, proper happiness. So we want to be aligned with Krishna, because he never ever loses at the game of life. Krishna is Bhagavan. Bhagavan means the favored one. He's favored in all situations. You cannot defeat Krishna. Many have tried. Everyone fails. Everyone fails. If he wants something to be done, it will get done. And if he does not want something to get done, it will not get done. The material world, we have some successes and some failures when we are separate from Krishna. But ultimately, we all fail. And death takes everything, no matter what. You may be up at the card game if you are in Las Vegas and you are a gambler. You may be up, you may be down. Then you may be up, you may be down. You may walk away with a lot of chips. But ultimately you will fail. The chips all get given back. Because death takes all. No one wins at this game. Krishna is time. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, time I am. And I have come to destroy and change all things. So no one can transcend time. Science cannot transcend time. Medicine cannot transcend time. When our time is up, we must give up our body. This body will not stay. It will go. That is sure. Old age will come and death will claim this body, because it is made of the material elements, and matter is not permanent. Earth, water, fire, air, ether are the gross elements. Mind, intelligence, ego are the subtle elements. So if you are smart, you will deal with your soul level. Krishna is on the soul level. He says, when I come into this world by birth, it is by choice, not by demand, not by requirement, not by karma. I take birth by choice. In order to alleviate the suffering of this material world, I take birth by choice. But we do not. Our karma dictates that we must take birth, because we are not independent. We are dependent on Krishna. He is supremely independent, without cause. Sarva karana karanam. He is the cause of all causes, and nothing is causing him but himself. So it is his will that directs. And Krishna is full of pleasure, so he is always interested in pleasure. But when we separate ourselves from Krishna due to free will, we come into this material world where there is pain. How do we get rid of our pain and suffering? We must reconnect with the source of pleasure, Krishna. Krishna is so much interested in having a good time. In the spiritual world, all the living beings who are liberated are playing with Krishna. So spiritual life means relearning how to play with Krishna. If we just learn this one thing, all of our suffering will be finished. And the easiest method is given by Lord Chaitanya. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Just chanting Hare Krishna will dissipate, will connect us to Krishna. Very simple. So Radha, again, she is the expert at arising the pleasure potency of Krishna, or the pleasure, the desire to engage in pleasure of Krishna. And when we chant Hare Krishna, we will begin to feel our proximity to Radha, our confidential relationship to Radha. This is not something we can understand with the material mind, but the mantra will waken up this fact. Radhe, Radhe, Radhe. We will begin to identify ourselves as a maidservant or as a servant of Radha. And as this feeling becomes more and more apparent to us, then our desire will be more to please Krishna than to please ourselves. Oh, Radha, what are you doing today to please Krishna? How can I serve you? You are wanting to get something nice for Krishna to eat. You want to supply something nice for his cooking. To cook for him. Always she's thinking of Krishna's pleasure. And she attracts Krishna. So if we can have the ocean, the absolute ocean of pleasure close to us, meaning if we can attract Krishna through the mercy of Radha, then our own pleasure will know no bounds. And a real devotee doesn't even consider his own pleasure, because the pleasure is there. What is the pleasure? It is to engage in the pleasure groves of Brindavan, giving pleasure constantly to the divine couple. This is the goal of bhakti. And as that goal becomes understood internally through a spiritual process of chanting Hare Krishna, we become detached from the lower forms of material pleasure we're so used to engaging in. This material life is sticky. It's causing us to think that there's no other pleasure. But miraculously, chanting Hare Krishna breaks that habit. That breaks that attachment. We become realized souls and we engage in the higher aspects, the higher realms of real pleasure, real activity. So this active material life and self-sense gratification and trying to enjoy ourselves through parties and drugs and just seeking money and sex, all these things, they're like a fever. They create a fire within us of untold sense gratification, and this fire becomes lower, dissipated. So the fire of material life dissipates, the fever, it comes down. So then with our spiritual vision, we can see internally what is reality. And we can give up this feverish attachment to material life, to this material body, to material sense gratification. You want answers. You know that famous movie, I'm thinking of the movie with Jack Nicholson and Tom Cruise. And Jack Nicholson's famous line, "You want answers. You want to know the truth. You cannot bear to hear the truth," he screams at him in the courtroom. "You couldn't handle it if I told it to you." And similarly, as I'm saying to you, it's hard to digest this truth, but everything we are doing in the material world is basically wrong. We are being stimulated in the wrong way. We are marching to the drum of the wrong drummer. We need to change who we're marching to. March to the Krishna drum, not to the Maya drum or the illusion drum. Marching we must, but march to the right drum. And when the right drum is sounding inside of you, you will know it, because your pleasure is going to come from within and not from the vicissitudes of material life without. And clarity and purpose and meaning will come to you from within, which will then envelop you in true relaxation and peace and detachment from unnecessary material endeavors. You know how some people, they cannot be alone for 1 minute. They run here, they run there. They must always be doing something. Always. They cannot sit because their minds are addicted to gratification, to the desire for pleasure. Their minds are distorted. And then when they run here and run there, they're not satisfied. They think they find something of pleasure, but then they must do it again and again and again. They cannot be peaceful, dhira, self-controlled. But a bhakti yogi, he doesn't have to search here and search there, because he's active within. He's not impersonal. He doesn't sit impersonally and try to artificially detach himself. No, he's busy thinking and acting for the pleasure of Radha Krishna. He looks forward to his meditation in the morning. He voluntarily stays detached from material life because he wants to join Radha Krishna. He wants to deepen his own service attitude toward them. His life has a different purpose. The materialist is getting up in the morning. The materialist is getting up in the morning, and he is has a purpose in life. But the spiritualist, he gets up in the morning, and his purpose is to engage in the service of Radha Krishna. He has a different purpose. So he's happy and joyful in his experience. He's simple. He's fixed. He's devoted. Joyful. He transcends time and the meaning of the material world easily. Okay, so we have concluded this morning talking to you about real pleasure, about the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, So I hope you will continue to listen to some of our lectures and feel inspired to engage in the service of Radha and Krishna. And you will see how nice a quality of life you have. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.